I joined the Golden Gate Lotus Club in 1978. I remember going to, Laura and I went to our first club meeting. It was at Mike McHugh's house. And when we drove away, Laura was laughing because she said that how I would have never imagined going to a place where there was 30 other people like you. It had to be the 1967 of all times, and the viewing of Grand Prix at a Cinerama, the movie Grand Prix, and seeing those cars whipping around tracks at amazing speeds in sort of the glamour of it and everything else just captivated my imagination. And then started reading about, I was interested in sports cars, and then the Europa came out, and there was a review on the Europa about that time. I think it was in Sports Car Graphics, and there was one statement in there that absolutely just said, you gotta have a Lotus, and that was a simple statement that said, a Europa is a Formula Ford for the street. And it was done. I had to have a Europa, I had to have a Lotus. So the first Lotus was a Series 2 Europa. I bought it at a dealer in Hayward at the time. That was 1978, I believe. And that was our only vehicle. So had to be a daily driver. The thing that absolutely convinced me that I had made the right purchase was taking the Europa to an autocross for the first time and going down this straightaway, and at the end of the straightaway the course designers had decided to put in a chicane. And I got to the chicane far faster than I had ever taken any other car into that sort of a situation. And I said, well, I think I'm going too fast. I know I'm going too fast, but let's just see what happens. And I went like this, jerked the wheel back and forth, and I came out the other side. I didn't hear any thumps like you usually hear when you hit a cone in a autocross. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and all the cones were still standing. And that was on Firestone 500s, and that is a point where I said, oh my God, these cars are freaking amazing. After the Europa, we had the Europa, and I ran into a Series 4 fixed head coupe Elan that I bought, did a little work on it, and eventually sold that car to Tom Cunny's brother. And then there was a Series 1 Esprit that came along the way that had some mechanical difficulty, which I repaired, and then we sold that car. And then I believe the 7 came along, and that was followed by, well, that was about the time when I started working with Lotus Cars USA for about a year, almost 2 years. I was between jobs, and Mark O'Shaughnessy, who was the marketing director at the time and was based here in the West Coast, said, you know, they're introducing an M100. He needed some help with putting together a sales manual for it and some other sales materials. And then he said, you know, while you're doing so, why don't you do some consultant work for us? And it turned out to be full-time consulting, so that was fine. A lot of it was preparing their sales materials, but also visiting dealers and educating the salespeople, doing a lot of sales training. Anything that had to do with the sales and marketing side and working with the dealerships was, for me, sort of my charge. And between Mark and I, we had everything west of the Mississippi. So it was quite a bit of travel. And then if the dealers were doing any kind of demos where they're, you know, where they weren't comfortable, they wanted a factory person there, that would show up. So things like the Seattle Track Day, or we did another one down in here locally. We did one, and did another one over in Denver area. So those were, you know, those kinds of things where a dealer would do something, we'd come in and we'd talk, we'd take people out for a drive or whatever, and be a sort of the factory representative. And so then I had my daily driver, or my company car with Lotus Cars USA, was an M100. They also had a X180R that I got to use for about 3 months. which was an amazing car. If there ever was an Esprit to own, in my book, it has to be an X180 Elan. I bought the 41 about that time, and then Elan came along, which I bought as well, and had to restore that. So, of the cars that I have now in the collection, or sort of in my captivity, I've done total restorations ground-up restorations on the Elan, the 41, and the 7. So I edited the newsletter, the Chapman Report, from 1978 until, I want to say, 1998, thereabouts, about 20 years. And then it went to, I think of John Zender was then the editor, became the editor, and then Jim McClure, and then of course now Joe Lipkin. So Chapman Report continues, which is pretty awesome. But I wasn't, that left me too much time, so I decided I should become the webmaster for the club. So that's what we do now.